Oh, that's nice to get that at the beginning of the day. I did that.
So while I'm taking attendance here,
Okay.
you should be reminding yourself of various due dates. And
That we don't
not to make you
do.
feel bad, but this is page 1 of various due dates.
Are you kidding me?
There's a page 2. This you've seen already.
We have a handout of this.
Yeah, you have a handout of this. The main thing is tomorrow, please be ready
To talk in our groups.
talk in your groups about
Paper.
arguments that your historian is making about why the U.S. entered the Spanish-American War. Good quotes. Supporting or rejecting the political or economic arguments for American involvement. That starts tomorrow. Now I'm showing you the new list.
No.
Unless anyone wants, you got it? You have a handout on this, so there's nothing here new. Okay, new list.
Are you
Just relax. It's the same thing I do at the day 1 of any new unit. It's when's the next testing window? You can see it's at the end of February, beginning of March.
Yep, here's Good Friday.
The next unit is on 5 chapters. It's actually a smaller unit. We've had 8 chapter units, 7 chapter units. This one's only 5.
Do we get a handout of this?
No?
So wait, our Kias are due Friday?
Just look and see if you have any questions,
What's the-
right?
I asked.
1 per week. 1 per week. First one would be this Friday. That's chapter 23. Also note that we don't have school February 8th, so that week's Kia would be due the day before on the 7th.
Are they super long? Yes.
So I'll have to do Kia 23. Cheat sheet we're getting today for the entire test, just like
Okay.
last time.
So, double star note here, cheat sheet. This is your cheat sheet. It's a half sheet of paper, front and back. You can use it for the entirety of the test. That's objective and essay
That's how big it is.
marked only this.
So we can
You
write an essay
cannot
on
mark
that?
up. Here, let me just talk, and then if you have any questions, you can ask.
I'm overwhelmed.
Do not mark up any documents, including the ones I'm going to be distributing you today, about the Blue Book essay. So once again, you have 2 separate writing thingies. One is the paper on why the U.S. entered the Spanish-American War. That's a paper. You type that. Then there's your Blue Book essay. You write that. You're going to get documents from which you will be making an argument for your 4th Blue Book essay. Anything you want to remind yourself of about those documents is written on this piece of paper, not on the documents. The synthesis article that you must find and directly quote from. The only document you directly quote from. That's it. That one. None of the others. Don't quote from the ones I give you. I feel like I've said this before, and yet somebody in here will do it. Don't let it be you. Let it be someone else. Anywho, the direct quote. You want to print off your synthesis article, but don't mark it. With one exception, draw your little SpongeBob right by the quote so that it's footnoted. Otherwise, you want to remind yourself, gee, what was that quote supposed to mean? You put it on this. Do you understand? You understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Which one of y'all hit me? Okay. I am now distributing to you Mr. Cheat Sheet.
Are you assuming it's gender?
That's fine. Can you put those cards away? I mean, far be it for me to suspect that while I'm talking, you guys have any cards.
Oh, sorry. I thought my last handwriting was small. I'm gonna write my whole essay on this thing. This side. This is gonna be hard. What if we actually try and memorize our essays? I could try and actually do that. Memorize my essay. Memorize my topic sentences. Write down my quotes. Or write down my document. No. Write down my topic sentences.
You know, when he gets the Chicago vote, apparently he's popular in like China.
I figured out I have 18 hours of flight time in this.
There are a lot of Chinese people.
I have a lot of time. I have 18 hours of flex time.
Is that done?
Yeah, I'm doing one independent study and one online.
So again, don't be confused. I have not given you the documents yet for the next Blue Book essay. You don't even know the topic yet. What you have is documents for your third quarter paper. Every CIS student throughout the state of Minnesota, and you are the only Wisconsin school, is writing that same paper. We're the only Wisconsin school affiliated with the U of M. There are other CIS affiliated programs, but they go through exciting schools like River Falls, and there's nothing wrong with River Falls. But I think the U of M has a little bit more name recognition. That's what it's got going for. That's it. Okay. To alleviate, I am now giving you the documents for the Blue Book essay. All right. Good news is there's a choice. There are two possible essays you can pick.
2 essays? So go to write one.
And there's a spice essay?
That's the workout area.
Don't mark this up.
Why are you believing everything I'm telling you?
Not even in here.
Next year only does a yoga slot now.
I'm done.
Here's what I'm gonna do.
Wilton?
Don't tell anyone, but it's true. But it's completely true.
Ready?
No, thank you.
And
Stevie, I'm taking
Hey, I'm
culinary
now
arts
quickly
online.
Really?
just
I'm so excited.
addressing. This is for your fourth
Is that
Blue
what
Book
you go to
essay,
school for?
not your paper. Your paper is about why the U.S. entered the Spanish-American War. It's based on a historiography of two historians. One argues they did it for political reasons, to spread democracy. The other says, nah, it was about economics. Yes, dear. Oh, yeah.
I'm struggling between doing culinary arts and nutrition.
that is the
Because they're kind of similar, kind of
paper.
different.
I would do culinary arts.
Okay.
Yeah, you should just.
This is your Blue Book essay, and it is based on an argument style called spice. I invite you to, when you're confronted with a writing prompt and you don't know where to start, spice is the way out of that little locked room. It's a strategy of, I don't know where to begin. Hey, here's a tool I might use. And I'm going to teach you what spice means in a minute here. The decision that you can make is, which essay would you like to write about? Hey, would you like to write about what factors helped to promote America's huge industrial growth during the period from 1860 to 1900? From 1860 to 1900, we went from an agricultural-based economy to the world's dominant industrial force. During that time period, we went from everybody's a farmer to more steel production and railroad production than any other country. How'd that happen? What happened? Why is it that we had the perfect combination of government involvement and capitalism and labor and immigration to create this economic force? Okay. If that sounds interesting to you, then it's the first set of documents. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those are the documents you'll refer to in the arguing of why is it that the United States became the dominant economic force. And there were social reasons and political reasons and international reasons and cultural reasons and economic reasons. Hey, there were social reasons, S, political reasons, P, international reasons, I, cultural reasons, C, and economic reasons, E, SPICE, spice. And you have to pick 3 of them. Any 3. You can pick ice or pick or pie. I don't care. Pick 3.
Wait, what's
Yes, spy with an I.
Why did the U.S.
It's right there. Or there's another option. If that sounds like really boring topic, then there's another option. And you got to turn a few pages in. And there it is. Option number 2. Why did American nativist groups oppose free, unrestricted immigration? Why were the xenophobes and nativists so against immigration at the time in the early 20th century?
Why don't you just make two?
Excellent synthesis. You know, you could link it to attempts by the current administration to restrict immigration and build a wall and all that stuff. And that's a nice little synthesis. The nativists were the descendants of the original immigrants who landed in the 13 colonies. They had children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And by this time, they considered themselves nativists. And they didn't want new waves of immigrants. Well, why not? And there were social reasons and political reasons and international reasons and cultural reasons and economic reasons. SPICE. Pick 3. Okay, does that sound interesting to you? Then you've got documents 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. Same number of documents, whichever one you pick. You can always wait and pick later.
Yeah, I'll probably do that. When should we have one picked?
Right.
by?
So I think you should wait and not decide which one you want to pick. But in order to pick, we need to kind of dive into both, and then you decide, well, this one seems more interesting to me, or I think I have a firmer grasp on this topic than the other one. And so the only way to do that is to really kind of dive into the documents and see what they say. And I could assign all of you all 14 documents, but I don't want to do that. I would rather assign each of you 1 document per topic. So 2 documents, 1 from the first 7 and 1 from the second 7. So I will go through and number you 1 through 7. You have that document number for both questions. So if you're a 1, you have document 1 for the first question and document 1 for the second question. And by when? When would be a fair time for you to have read these incredibly little documents?
March. Next Monday.
Tomorrow I'll forgive you. We're going to be talking about the historians. Let's say
Next Monday.
Thursday.
Thursday.
Because this covers nutrition too.
Yes, Thursday. Okay, here we go. Ready? I'm numbering you 1 through 7.
Yeah, I
1,
can do that. That sounds
2,
interesting.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7 gross amount of Holcomb. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Jack, 6, 7 gross amount of Holcomb. Riley, 1. If you're wondering what Stephen Grossman Holcomb is, it's a law firm that used to have commercials.
Why is it one?
True story. One time I'm going through and I'm numbering people 1 through Stephen Grossman Holtham. I point to a girl and I say, Stephen Grossman Holtham. And she says, how did you know? And I said, how did I know what? Her grandfather was the Von Holtham of Stephen Grossman Holtham. He's the lawyer. How about that? Completely random, right? Riley, you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Stephen Grossman Holtham. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Stephen Grossman Holtham.
I don't get it.
1, 2, 3, 4. You understand? I have more to give you.
Yay.
This is only if you need it. I texted you yesterday and I actually sent a picture, but you have to register for the class through the U of M. Do you want those 3 more credits? You have to register. If you don't bother, I'm not doing it for you. I mean, I hope you register for the class, but if you don't, I still get paid. Here's the handout. It's the same as the picture I sent you. Do you need it? I'm giving it to you now. When I get paid in this is truthfully, this is the class I get to do. You guys are awesome, right?
So you get paid through the U of M and the high school?
No, I get paid because you're in my room.
Hey, got a problem? That. What? Go back. Did you want? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. All right, one second. We're going on.
Can I go to the bathroom?
No.
Yeah, I'm gonna hurt you. Can I
Okay.
have one card?
So,
Going to
no,
the
that's right.
dice game?
So,
Probably.
in order to register correctly, you have to know where you are on Wednesdays. So, some of you I see mods 1, 2, and 3 on Wednesdays. If that's you, pay attention to column number 1. Some of you I see in mods 11, 12, and 13 on Wednesdays. If that's you, pay attention to column number 2, and you just follow the directions.
I did that.
Okay, and then you should be good to go. And
Are we taking notes for this?
Yeah. no, we're getting at it. How is your schedule? How do you like your schedule?
Like 2 more minutes and then he's going, like so we can select. And then go.
What?
You just like wait. before
No,
we-
let's roll.
Oh, I'm tired. I want to finish my cheese.
You're finished.
I'm gonna throw my stuff away.
Okay. The last thing I'll mention on this page is you do need to find a synthesis article about which is related to your essay topic for your Blue Book essay. I would suggest you wait on that until you decide which topic you want to address. The first one is very much an economic based essay. Why are we the economic giant that we are? The second one is very much having to do with immigration. Why is it that the descendants of the European immigrants that came and founded the 13 colonists, why were they so xenophobic? Why weren't they more, well, our ancestors were immigrants, let's welcome the new batch in? Why didn't they have that attitude? Okay, and I do think that either would be very much easy to find a current situation as far as synthesis. Or remember, synthesis works both ways. You can go forward in time or backward in time. You can argue, and let's say that you're doing the immigration one, you can go back to the original immigrants and how they were welcomed by the natives as an example of synthesis. It works both ways. Okay? Any questions on that? Rock, go ahead.
Are we supposed to know our U of M student ID number?
No. Well, yes, but no.
I don't think it matters.
It's optional.
It says if known. So.
Yeah, if known. If you really want to type it in there, I have that information. I don't think it matters. It really doesn't. Okay, any other questions before we actually start talking about stuff from Unit 4?
Are these the notes that will be on like chapter 23 key-off for Friday?
Yes. Yes. Teaching.
What's like Unit 4 called?
It's in the syllabus.
Yeah, I do. It's called the.
This wasn't our last
It's
unit
called,
sectionalism.
Yeah, sectionalism. This one should be called. Oh yeah.
It matters a lot.
It's called After the Civil War.
This unit.
Sure. Well, no, Reconstruction's covered already, right? Okay.
You really want to know?
Here we go. We have 3 slides to cover, and then the rest of the hour you can start attacking stuff.
It's called Foraging in an Industrial Society.
There we go. I talked about this already, but here we go again, just as a reminder. The first presidential election after Lincoln was assassinated, because, of course, he was reelected in 64, assassinated in 65. Andrew Johnson finishes out his presidency, which would mean the next election is 1868. And surprising to nobody, Grant wins. And you already know why Grant won such support in the South. You already know that answer. Think about who got to vote in the 1868 election and how those 3 groups, and I hope I'm saying things that you're thinking, yep, I know exactly what 3 groups he's talking about. You should. Those 3 groups voted heavily for Grant, and that's why the states in the South voted Republican. It says here that he won the black vote, especially in the South. They were able to vote. 4 years later, he's reelected. Grant is blue in this one. He's red over here. He's blue over here. You can see he wins Northern support. You can see he wins Southern support. The Democrats, we've seen this before, stupidly ran multiple candidates. If candidate A doesn't beat him, I bet candidate B will. And it rarely works. All you've done is split the Democratic vote. So he's elected and reelected. One of the great generals of American history, truly. He beat the man, the myth, the legend, Robert E. Lee. Not considered a great president, though. And we'll kind of delve into why. Fair or not, if you're president and there are scandals going on while you're president, you're blamed. Fair or not. And so we're going to look at some scandalous behavior under Grant's leadership. You know, fair or not, if the economy goes really well, the president gets blamed. Well, he didn't personally hire anybody. Fair or not, if the economy goes down in the toilet, the president gets blamed. Well, I doubt he personally engaged in behavior that caused Apple to fire people. But they get credit and they get blamed. Okay. Any questions on this slide? Let's rock. I am now introducing to you some corruption that happened under Grant's watch. The time period after Reconstruction was called the Gilded Age. Does anyone know what gilded means? Besides her. Jack, go ahead. Very good. That is outstanding. Looks good. Looks good. But scratch a little bit. Ugh. Okay. You are looking at one of the more famous political cartoons that ran at the time. And we've got some evil mustached guy, and he's got a name on his collar. That's Rockefeller. That's John D. Rockefeller, one of the wealthiest people in human history. And in his hand, in the palm of his hand, is a building. And it's white. And it's a house. It's the House of White. It's the White House. And And look at the little people in it. Aren't they cute? And then over there, there's some other building. It's the U.S. Capitol. Very good. And look what's coming out of it.
Steam. Oil.
Smoke. Very good. From all of the massive oil production. This is the time when the U.S. would start down that journey of massive production of oil because cars start at this time. Okay. Well, what's going on? I am now introducing to you some examples of specific corruption that happened during the Gilded Age. Like, for example, the Packers are a perfect example, actually. Do any of you have in your house a piece of paper arguing that you are an owner of the Green Bay Packers? You have a piece of paper that has its stock in the Packers.
My grandpa has one.
Okay. Perfect. That piece of paper, I hate to break it to you.
No, he told me straight up it's not worth it.
It's not worth anything. You do not get to drive down to Green Bay and say, excuse me, I'm an owner. I'd like to have a little input about the next coach. No, I'm sorry. You don't get to. It's a piece of paper. It's about as useful as if any of you have ever had a grandparent buy you a star. They can't take you out one night and say, look, Zach, you see that star? I bought it for you. It's yours. Thanks, Grandma. I'm the owner of that star. Now what should I do with all that energy? Nothing. You will do nothing with that energy. You don't own that star. You own a piece of paper that says you own that star. You don't actually own the star. Same thing, railroads. Railroads engaged in a corruptive practice where they sold bonds, ownership in the railroad, and people paid for it, thinking, I now own the railroad. No, you don't. You own a piece of paper. That's all you own. They didn't know it at the time. And they discovered it through the role of newspapers, and we'll talk about the role of newspapers later. So that's an economic example of corruption. I'll give you a political example of corruption. Any of you ever heard of Boss Tweed? Nobody's heard of Boss Tweed? You know when Dorothy walks in with the Tin Man and the lion and the scarecrow, and they approach the great and powerful Oz? Now, let me ask this. Is he the person they should be talking to? Is he the one who's actually running the show? Who's running the show? The man behind the curtain. The man behind the curtain. Toto, remember, pulls back the drapes, revealing the man behind the curtain. That's this guy named Tweed. Tweed was never a mayor. He was never a governor. He was never a senator. He was never a representative. He never held office of any kind.
This is political.
But he's the man behind the curtain. He got people to vote the way he wanted them to vote by offering those people jobs. And he offered that job to immigrants. So he operated in New York City, and he was very wealthy, and he wanted her to be the next mayor. So he would say to these people, all right, listen, you vote for her, I'll give you a job. She got elected. They have jobs. And I now have control over the mayor. The man behind the curtain, Mr. Tweed. Okay. It was newspapers that exposed it. Interesting synthesis today. The claim by media that Trump is criminal versus the claim by other media that that's all hype, that it's all made up. This is nothing new. This battle of media, it's just that 100 years ago it was newspapers. Today it's web.
So the newspaper reported Tweed.
Newspapers exposed what's called the Tweed ring, exposed the corruption of newspapers And now, of course, once it's exposed, now the government has to do something about it. But the government can't do anything until they know about it. It was newspapers that exposed this stuff. So public demanded change. Because of newspapers, the public became aware of it, and they demanded change. So in future classes, we'll have to talk about, well, what were those changes? Okay. The last scandal, at least on this slide, is something called the Credit Mobiler scandal. Anyone ever heard of it? Credit Mobiler scandal? Besides him? Okay. This is a great political. I love it when they put little baby bodies with adult heads on it. I just think it's adorable in a sick way, you know. So this is the political cartoon that ran after the Credit Mobiler scandal was exposed by newspapers. Now follow this one. It's kind of brilliant and sad. So what happened was there's a railroad, the Union Pacific Railroad, and they're given a contract to build the Transcontinental Railroad. The U.S. government has hired the Union Pacific Railroad build a railroad across America. And they accept it. Now, when you're building a railroad, is all you're building a railroad?
No,
What else do you have to build?
land structure around it to make it fit.
You might do that, yeah. Anybody else? Bridges, right? Caves. You got to build trains. Okay, that's fine. So what the Union Pacific Railroad did was they created a subsidiary company, a construction company. That construction company built the bridges and the caves, and then Union Pacific built the railroad. You following me? So you got the Union Pacific Railroad, and then you have a construction company started by the Union Pacific Railroad. They then hired themselves. Yeah. They hired themselves. Okay, so you've got Company A that's been hired by the U.S. government to build a railroad. That company hires Company B to build the bridges, and then Company B just jacked up their prices for these bridges. And Company A said, well, who's going to pay for this? The U.S. government. The U.S. government will pay for this. You can't do that. Everyone, you can't do that. You can't do that. They hired themselves. It's brilliant.
So they get like more money.
Yeah, a lot more money, right? A lot more money.
I guess I didn't follow.
The second thing they did was to make sure that no government official objected was if ever a government official found out about it, they just bribed them. They just paid them on the side, cash on the side. Oh, don't worry about it. Here's your cut. Was this exposed by a mayor that said, no, I will not take that money? Nope. Exposed by a newspaper. A newspaper. American media is seen today as the corrupt media, the lying media. I will caution you, though, that one of the reasons we are a free society is because our newspapers report on corrupt behavior. Go to another country where the government owns the newspapers and see if anything's reported about corrupt behavior. Probably not. We have a free and independent media here. Now, does that mean that they never lie? Of course, sometimes lies happen. But it's independent and it reports on corrupt government behavior, and we need to see that as a positive thing. Okay, any questions here? Go ahead.
So like the first one was economic and the second one was political. So like what
That's
Well, it's economic and political, right? Oh, I see. You're trying to figure out which test it'll be in. Clever.
Blaze.
Okay, one more slide. Reconstruction ends in 1877, so technically this law was still within the time period known as Reconstruction. It's called the Civil Rights Act of 1875. It was an attempt. It was an attempt to say Southern states creating black spaces and white spaces No. You can't do that. It violates this law. You must have equal accommodations in public places, public schools, public restrooms, public parks. You can't have one spot for blacks and one spot for whites. Well, we have the law in 1875. Well, then what happened? Because clearly segregation continued. Segregation continued right up to and through Brown v. Board of Education, 1954. Well, what happened then? Explain to me why this law failed. You know the answer. Very good. It did not apply to private institutions. Okay, very good. So you've got that whole thing. But what if it's a public facility and the law was violated? And you're the black family, and you can clearly say, hey, wait a minute, that law was violated. Who's enforcing it? Very good. Who's enforcing it? Nobody. Nobody's there to enforce it. That's problem number one. It also outlawed all white juries. But clearly that happened. And it is because no one was there to enforce it. There's no presence to enforce it. That's problem one. Problem two, if any of you recall from the document packet that I gave you for the last essay, anyone remember? What was the other thing? What was the other thing wrong with this law? Let me ask it this way. What happened to this law? Take a guess. No, but that's on the right track. That's another good guess, but wrong. What happens to laws, right, that end? Well, they either expire, and I'm telling you that's true. Laws are not vetoed. Bills are vetoed. Laws are not vetoed. Was ignored. That's true. That's okay. The Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional. You can't tell states how they make up their juries. That is a jury right. That is a state right. Federal government cannot do that. So it was declared unconstitutional. That's what happened to it. Okay. Now you do have about 15 minutes here. There is no way that anybody in here has nothing to do. That's not possible. Okay? Use the time I'm giving you. Right?
How much time?
All right, you have the rest of the hour. Attack.
Are we done?
First one's Friday.
50?
The Supreme Court argued that the federal government had no right to tell states how
Want to take the key up for chapter 23 right now? Are we going to do that? I'm kind of scared. And look at the answers.
I'll do it.
That was the argument that the Supreme Court made. On later court, they say that.
We're going to stop. And then, like, if we're like, oh shit, we don't want to do this, just exit. We'll take it later.
You know, I'm never on camera.
That's all I really have to do because I already did the readings and the findings. And we can answer the questions that we just took notes on from today.
Oh, look, I switched to your
Logan, are you taking chapter 23? And then, like, wait, my computer's dead.
Like I'm gonna take it out.
I just went and grabbed the Chromebook.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. I'm
Better
gonna do
than
it.
nothing.
Stevie was gonna do it too.
I can't order it anymore.
She was gonna do it.
Wait, Stevie, I'm not